Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Thursday, January 31st, 2019. It's 4:19 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. There's no new methane data up on CAMS yet, so what I thought I'd do is just go over some things on Climate Reanalyzer that we haven't looked at recently. I've got some articles and some research that I've done, and we'll go over comments and we'll go over earthquakes. So it'll be a full show. So I hope everyone is doing well and hanging in there. Tomorrow's almost Friday. And what we have here on Climate Reanalyzer is I have the daily maps up here, and let's look at, okay, so here's the temperature. We can look at, here's the average, maximum, and minimum for today around the world. So you can see this huge, I didn't mean to do that. I gotta click all the way through. You can see this huge Arctic cold air and how it's split off and has come down over Russia and Siberia, and then also come down Canada and into the US. And these are sub-zero temperatures, and it's causing a lot of problems. And one of the problems I'm going to share in an article that was sent to me by my best friend, and has to do with earthquakes that happen in cold weather. So that should be interesting. And then you can see as you get down into the southern hemisphere, they're baking all around. And look at, now here's Antarctica, but Australia is still baking. Oh, look at this interesting line here. That's just like a definite interesting line. Anyway, I just now saw that. So Australia is still baking way high in their temperatures, and I mean, people know wherever they're from, they know what's going on. And all of this extreme weather is as a result of abrupt climate change. And so because the jet stream gets screwy, everything acts weird and out of the norm. And as we get into the winter melts, the spring melt season up here in the Arctic, when we get into that, I mean, just watch out, because things are going to be heating up even worse. And if we're still here next year, expect, or by next winter, expect more and more extreme cold weather, and extremes just all over the map. So here's the 2-meter temperature anomaly map. And so even though it's cold up in the Arctic, there's this one little part that's a lot higher than normal, that's up into the brown and the red zone. That's 20 degrees Celsius warmer than it normally should be, and that's right down the midline, going right down the midline right through the North Pole. So and then they have extreme cold coming down into Canada and of course into the United States, and that's where a lot of people are without power, and it's awful. It's awful, and my hearts go out to everybody who's having problems in all of this extreme weather, not just the cold, but the heat in the countries down under. Look at this up in Siberia, and that anomaly, that's down into this purple, so that's 20 degrees Celsius lower than normal. And the same in the US. See, parts are like that as well. And then South America doesn't look too bad. but here's the Antarctic, and so this area over here beside the Weddell Sea, that's warmer than usual. Now, and New Zealand is definitely in the brown. They're having the heat wave that Australia was and is still having parts of it, and they're kind of baking down there. And I know I have quite a few viewers from Australia and New Zealand, and so I don't want to leave you guys out with my reports. And so if anybody wants to report from around the world what's going on in your neck of the woods, just leave it in the comments, and we're happy to hear from you. So now let's look at this precipitation. It's some snow, but the blue is snow, so not that much snow, but it's just this Arctic cold, and then some snow, but it can get so cold that it won't snow. So, and so up here where it's so warm, where we saw it so warm up here in the mid-Arctic Sea, it's snowing, and they're actually getting some rain up here by Norway. So we'll just click around and give everybody kind of a climate cast update here, and see what's going on in your neck of the woods. And then there's this big band of moisture. I didn't mean to do that. There's this big band of moisture going around the planet that's still there. We can see it's kind of broken up, but it's still going around kind of the equator area. And then look, this whole area is like dry. It's totally, almost totally dry, from like northern Africa to Saudi Arabia to India to China and Asia. I mean, it's like, what's going on? That's crazy. And everything is out of whack. Then there's a lot of rain in South America. And so forth. I'm not real good at showing weather, but I mean I can, but it's not my forte. You want to see sea level pressure while we're at it. So these are highs up here, and then these are lows. The purples are lows. So that's where you have the extreme weather highs as well. Look at this low coming down over, where is that? It's hard to tell. It looks like it's next to England, or the UK and Ireland in that area. Huge low over there. And a huge high over here. That's where that cold weather is, in Siberia. Here's another low in the Pacific. And look at the two low pressures right down here, right off the southern tip of South America. That's interesting. And then two high pressures down here. Well, it looks like it's low all the way around the Antarctic, and it looks like it's broken up into these groupings. So there's that. Now let's look at the jet stream. Here it is, where it's coming down out of the Arctic, and then swooping down, making a diagonal across Canada, and then straight down, slashing across the middle United States, and then swooping back up. And so all this cold Arctic air is moving in, and it's fast. It's really fast. Like this red, it's showing 125 knots wind speed. And then here's another jet stream where it's split, coming across Mexico. So then it comes across the Atlantic and then comes up this way, and then there's another one that comes across Africa, and it's a mess. And look at this jet stream speed. That's up in this fuchsia color. That's like top of the chart. It's above 165 knots. I wouldn't want to be there. Look at it coming, looping in the Pacific. And then here it is in around South America, and then around the Antarctic. So there's that. And then we can see sea ice and snow cover. And so we can see in the Arctic that we're getting a little more sea ice coverage here in this Barents Sea. Not really this much on this side of Novaya Zemlya. On the other side, it looks like it's filling in a little bit. It's growing a little more from Greenland out, and a little more down here in the Hudson Bay, or the Baffin Bay. This is the Hudson Bay. This is the Baffin Bay here. And I did some research. I just looked back through some of the years on. I'll show you that in a minute. I don't want to get sidetracked, but this area here has been ice-free in the Arctic for quite some time. In the winter time, it has the sea ice has not come back in this area where this Atlantic water is coming in and mixing for quite some time. So I can show you that. Now let's look at sea surface temperature anomaly. Now this is a day old. For whatever reason, they update this a day later. And so even with all this cold air, cold temperatures, the sea surface temperature is still warmer in many places where you see the browns and the reds. In spite of the cold, it is still warmer than they normally are. Even look off this east coast of the United States and Canada, it's in the red. And you know, anybody can go to these sites and see what's going on. And once you start going and figuring it out, you'll understand. You learn geography and all kinds of cool stuff. You learn where countries are, and then it's really red down here in the South Pacific. Here's New Zealand down here. And I didn't know anything when I started doing this. I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew where the continents were, but I didn't know the actual countries inside the continents and stuff. Look how red it is off this east coast of South America. There's a lot of methane coming up there too. Then here's the Antarctic, and then here's the Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand, and it's way high. It's up in the red. So they've got problems down there. The heat is unbelievable. I saw one article where in New Zealand they had water trucks out spraying the roads to keep the roads from melting. So that's sad. Oh, here's what I was going to show you. Where is it? Home. Daily reanalysis and sea ice maps. And I'm going to go to Arctic. And I'm going to go to sea ice concentration. And they don't update this all the time. This is the last information they have in here. They'll get it updated eventually. But what I wanted to show you, you saw where it is right now. You saw that. So let's go back to, well, we're at the end of January, so let's go to February. See, here's where it was February 1st of 2018, and it doesn't look that much different than where we are right now. Seriously. In fact, there's a little more sea ice coming back up here where we're at now than this time last year. But it's thin. You know, it doesn't show the thickness here. We have to go to other websites for that. And then if you go back, well, and then at the height, when it starts melting, like the sun starts coming up at the end of March up there, and then everything starts melting as the sun starts coming up. So here's where the sea ice was in March 1st, or if you want to look at April 1st. Here's where it was at its height, like, and then the sun started coming up and then it started melting. So if you want to go back year by year, you can look, and they've got it. See, here it was from 2017, and this was all clear even in 2017. In 2016, same thing. 2015. Here's 2015, April 1st. So I guess the difference would be the concentration and the thickness of this is what you'd want to look at, and you'd have to find that on other websites. I mean, it can be done, but it's not all on one website. Here's 2013, and see, there was more out here in the Bering Strait, and then out here off the coast of Russia here. And then 2012, the sea ice was very low. So even in 2012, with the sea ice very low, you know, it doesn't, frankly, to me, it doesn't look that much different than what we're seeing right now as far as the extent. So has to do with the concentration, I'm sure. So I just wanted to show you that. Anyway, that's always interesting to look at, so I'll just leave this up as a backdrop. And then I want to share an article with you. Has to do with frost quakes. Has anyone heard of frost quakes? Yes, frost quakes are a real thing in Pennsylvania. This is from MSN.com. This was published 19 hours ago. Kara Seymour was the author of this article. Here's a picture. And this is the drifting snow blowing across the road near Mount Joy in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Wednesday, January 30th. A bitter deep freeze is moving into the northeast from the Midwest, sending temperatures plummeting and making road conditions dangerous. And when it gets cold up there, I lived in Pennsylvania for 5 winters and I thought I was going to die. When it gets cold, it cuts right through you because it's humid. It's this humid cold, and it's like you're gonna die. That's what it feels like. So it says, as an Arctic mass of bitter cold air descends on the region, we have a lot to look forward to: whipping winds, frozen pipes, and generally painful outdoor experiences. Oh, and now there's one more thing apparently: frost quakes. Frost quakes are a real thing, and they've been reported in Pennsylvania as well as across the Midwest, which is bracing for some of the coldest temperatures in decades. A frost quake is a seismic event potentially caused by a sudden cracking in soil or rock that's frozen due to being saturated with ice or water. According to Indiana-based television network WLFI, frost quakes are not known to cause injuries or damage and are commonly heard at night when it's quieter. There have been several instances of frost quakes reported in Pennsylvania, most recently in Dillsburg, York County. Residents there told CBS 21 they recently felt the ground shake underneath their homes. Resident Michelle Tebbets told the network this week she heard a bang so loud it sounded like a big piece of furniture fell over. Tebbets said she reported the incident to York College professor and geologist Jerry Jones, who confirmed it was a frost quake. Frost quakes are caused during times of extreme cold. Now, I don't know if these are measured on the Richter scale and would show up on USGS. We did see a small one in Massachusetts a couple of days ago. So, I don't know. Continuing, as water drains into the ground, the liquid freezes and expands, putting stress on everything around it. At a certain point, the ice breaks or cracks, creating these booms, according to WLFI. And oh, is extreme cold coming our way. Thursday's high will be 17 with wind chill values as low as -12, according to the National Weather Service. While you shouldn't worry much about injuries or damages, the boom could be loud enough to wake you up, warns Mechanical Business. What if an ice quake occurs around water service lines or utility lines buried deep in your yard? Do not try to repair on your own, and instead call your local utility company immediately if this happens and you find yourself without water, gas, or electricity. However, Mechanical Business notes that kind of issue pales in comparison with the immediate danger that a damaged gas or hydro line can present. And that's the end of that article. I found it most interesting, so I will leave the link below if people want to read this for themselves. So now we've got frost quakes to worry about. Well, there you go. So let's get to our comments. And as a result of the comments, I have some research that I'm going to be sharing with you as well in between. And first comment comes in from my friend Robin Westenra, Seymour Rocks 97, and he says, confirmation of what we've been observing from China for months now. And he put a blog post up, and this is under my video from, I don't know, 3 days ago. Follow up on the sulfur dioxide off the west coast of California, an earthquake report. So he says, and it has to do with China's methane emissions. And he says, what about Europe and India? And if you click there, this is his blog post, and he says, confirmed, China's methane emissions are through the roof. And, you know, we've been seeing this whenever we see cams and we look at that methane coming up, it's always brown and black over China and India as well. But nobody talks about it. Anyway, he goes on, we have been fed propaganda in how much China is doing to reduce its emissions. Of course, it was always a lie, as any quick checking of the data will show. This is a history of local communist governors lying to the central authorities. This is on an epic scale. Margo and I have been covering methane emissions on a regular basis for the last 6 months, and although we have been concentrating on the Arctic, it has been extremely difficult to overlook both China and India. Question, when are they going to mention India's emissions? And then there are articles that he's reposted here, like here's one from Carbon Brief, where they talk about the coal mining in China. Here's a short video that he did that's on YouTube that's showing, you know, here's China, here's the methane, here's India. So what I like about Robin, you know, I do these long videos, these long research reports, but he'll do a short video just to show like the exact thing that you're focusing on, and then he does the blog post. So, you know, we just report it in a different way. So anyway, if you want to read about this, apparently it has to do with China being one of the world's largest producer and consumer of coal. And when coal is mined, methane can escape from the coal seam. I've reported on all of this, and I've reported on all of this before. So anyway, he brings it all together. He brings together a couple of articles about it. So now it's being reported on. And so, you know, people talk about the U.S. and how we need to curb this and curb that. But if you look on the global scale and just the land mass, China and Asia and Russia, those areas cover so much more land mass than what the United States does. It's insane. So, you know, just because we're smaller in land mass, you know, we're going to be producing less, and we're not as densely populated as well. We don't have as many people, so there you go. Thanks, Robin, for that. Good research and good reporting on that. And then Marcia Noren leaves a couple of comments. She says, when you zoom in on the earthquakes around the Monterey Bay, that's my neighborhood, Margo. But what worries me the most, after the Cascadia subduction zone, is the Hayward Fault, based on what some seismologists have said. Thank you for these super informative updates on all fronts. I did a little research because I wasn't sure where the Hayward Fault was located. Now, what we see on USGS is the San Andreas Fault zone, that red line that comes down this coastline. But the Hayward Fault runs right to the east of this San Francisco Bay area, and right down here, and to the east of San Jose and Berkeley and Oakland, and apparently it's a huge deal, and they've had earthquakes there, and they're saying that if a big earthquake happened on this fault, it would kill a lot of people and displace a lot of people. So anyway, this is from Berkeley EDU on the Hayward. This is the Berkeley Seismology Lab where I got this, and it says, on October 21st, 2018, we will commemorate the 150th anniversary of the magnitude 6.8 Hayward Fault earthquake. Now, 6.8 doesn't sound very big compared to what we've been seeing around the world, but if you have a 6.8 located in a densely populated area, you're going to have major damage. So, and it says the Hayward Fault runs along the foot of the East Bay Hills, something that all residents of the Bay Area and the East Bay in particular should know. Its last major earthquake occurred on October 21st, 1868, destroying downtown Hayward, killing 5 people and injuring 30. With an estimated magnitude of 6.8, it caused damage throughout the area. San Francisco alone suffered $350,000 in property damage, and it was considered the Great Earthquake until 1906. So anyway, they've been studying this, so you got that to worry about. So there's that. I will leave the link below. So thanks, Marcia, for that. And then she says, P.S. I'm so glad that doing these daily reports does not seem to be tiring for you. Well, Marcia, thank you. And I'm attempting to keep up the daily reports, even if, if I don't have a lot of time or a lot of energy, I'll just do earthquakes and just comments or just earthquakes. But I feel like it's important that we keep a pulse on what's going on, and I want to keep in touch with everyone on a daily basis. And if I happen to miss a day here or there, don't worry about me. And I'm here. I'm still here and doing stuff. But thanks for being here. And, frankly, wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, I think. And there's not going to be any safe place when it comes time. Wherever you go to, each place has its own issues and its own problems. And eventually, nobody's going to make it out alive. So I think we're all placed, strategically placed around the world where God wants us for whatever job we have to do, and whatever that is. So I appreciate each and every one of you from wherever you are. So thank you, Marcia. Now DDDSB says, thank you, Margo. I look forward to hearing your voice every day. Well, you're welcome, DDDSB. Thank you. I'm glad that you like hearing my voice every day. Snaglet22 says, awesome ozone, my goodness. I know, it's freaky to see it. It's right there, you know, for people to see, but we just aren't aware. We can see all this science. It's right there, so anyway. We just don't take the time or the trouble to look at the science that's right there, because we're so busy. Our lives are so busy, and we're concentrated on making a living and dealing with all this other stuff. And you know, I've got time now. So, and then Robin posts, I think this is the same article. He says, today an article came out showing that China's not keeping to its commitments. How do they know? It's humongous methane emissions that we all know about. And so that was the article that he had posted. He says, here's a video I made showing emissions in China and Eurasia as a whole. We saw that. And just as shocking are the emissions in Europe, which seem to be greater in Eastern Europe. Does Poland still use a lot of coal? You know, I don't know. But they had an earthquake. So people can just click on these links and find out more about methane coming up in China and in Europe. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. Sensible Hair says, cheers, Margo. Cheers, Sensible Hair. Then Troy Turton leaves a couple of comments. He says, are these videos broadcast live, or you make them just to post here? I think I may have asked this already, but LOL, my memory went when my money went. These are recorded and then uploaded, Troy. I've done live shows. I've done some live streaming. I do it occasionally, but I prefer to record it and then upload it, because sometimes I have to do some editing, and it's just easier on me to record it and upload it. And then he said, I wonder if all that volcanic and earthquake activity is anywhere near where the 1 million+ immigrants from Venezuela are. Just a thought. Are you talking about the migrants coming? Or I thought, well, there were a lot of protests down in Venezuela, so, you know, I'm not sure where the migrants are right now. But I did a little bit of research and looked at the volcano belt in South America, and the volcano belt is right up here in Colombia and Ecuador, and then down here coming down Peru and Argentina, and that's where the volcano belt is in the Andes. And then I looked up the timeline for the Venezuelan protests, because I thought you were referring to the protests and where they were for that. And the protests are where the people are swarming in the streets and stuff, or in Venezuela, and they're actually near Caracas, and I'll show you on the earthquake map where it is. So I don't know about Venezuelan migrants. or immigrants. I know that that they were coming from the Honduras. That was the main place. So I don't know about Venezuelans. I'm not focused on all that right now. I'm too busy looking at all these earthquakes. But the protests were in Caracas and also in this little country, Carabobo over here. And so Valencia is the capital of Carabobo. And so that's not where the volcanoes are. The volcanoes are along this line where the mountains are, and then down here along here in Peru, and then it takes a little break and then it picks up and comes back in Chile and on down. So we have seen some earthquakes here in Venezuela, kind of over here, and we've seen earthquakes over here in Colombia. So, you know, the people can be up feeling the emotional pressures of all of this stuff and feeling off and feeling emotionally insecure and everything as a result of these earthquakes, most definitely. And so anyway, I hope that answered your comment, Troy. That's as best I could do on that. But thank you for being here, Troy. Tom Bell says, Margo, your great work is very much appreciated. You're a superstar. Thank you, Tom Bell. You're a sweetheart. Thanks for being here. And those are our comments for today. And now let's get right to our earthquakes. We're showing, we have an uptick here. We're showing last 24 hours, all magnitudes on the USGS, 289 earthquakes worldwide. And here are the ones that are 2.5 magnitude and higher, and we're showing 52 around the planet. 2.5 magnitude and higher in the last 24 hours. So we're going to start with this one from Russia that's about to fall off the map. This came in yesterday at 5:23 p.m. and it was off the coast of Kamchatka at the end of this Aleutian Island chain, right on the red line where the North American plate meets the Pacific plate. It was at 4.7 and it happened at 5:23 p.m. Pacific time. All these times I'm telling you will be Pacific time. So we've seen them there before. So there's that one. Now let's see what else we have to address immediately. There's a 2. Oh, that was later. That was at 6:18. I think that's all that's going to fall off the map immediately. So let's start right up here and come around this ring of fire and then across the Pacific and up, and we can see first of all we've had these a lot bigger dots, a lot of earthquakes in the 5 ranges. And look down here in Central America, over here in the South Pacific, and over here in the Mariana Islands. So things are moving around. So the next one we're going to look at is this one off the coast of Japan. This one was in the ocean. It was a 4.1 that happened yesterday. Yesterday at 7:41 p.m. 341 kilometers deep. So this is a deep earthquake that will cause the tectonic plates to move and magma to move around the globe. and this was near Toba, Japan. So it was to the east of the mainland, right near that red line. Then coming on down here in the northern, in the Mariana Islands, we had a 5.0 that came in this morning at 11:14 this morning, and a 5.1 that came in at 10:17 this morning. So it was less than an hour apart, 2 5s. So the first one happened, the 5.1, and then the 5.0 pretty much in the same place. They show 10 kilometers depth. That's when they don't know how deep it was. They just default to 10 kilometers. So we don't really know how deep that was. But those are significant earthquakes there, and happen in the ocean there, it looks like. So probably didn't do any damage. Now down here in Indonesia, next we have this one, a 4.6 near Tobelo that happened at 12:50 this afternoon today, 224 kilometers deep, and a 4.6 near Costa, Ternate that came in at 4:54 this morning, 98 kilometers deep. These were in the ocean. So they probably didn't cause any damage, but I imagine people living down there, they're feeling it. They're feeling these rumblings, and that has got to be unsettling. Here's this 5.4 that came in near Isongal, Vanuatu, last night at 9:50 p.m., 177 kilometers deep. Here's a 4.3 near Lombasa, Fiji, that came in at 9:45 this morning, 518 kilometers deep, very deep. A 4.6 near Nidoy Island, Fiji, came in at 1:37 this morning, 556 kilometers deep, another deep one. Then a 5.5 south of the Fiji Islands, came in at 6:33 this morning, 507 kilometers deep. So these were very, very deep. So that will cause a lot of movement. Then, down here in the Indian Ocean, there was a 4.9 on the mid-Indian Ridge. It came in at 8:32 this morning, right on that red line. We can see it's way south. It was between the southern end of Australia and the southern tip of Africa, basically. So there's all of those. Now, let's come over here. Let's look at South America next. We had this 4.2 near Iquique, Chile. It came in at 11:49 this morning, 102 kilometers deep. Then there were two on this red line here in the ocean. This is on the East Pacific Rise, Central East Pacific Rise. There was a 4.7 that happened at 10:58 this morning, and then a 4.9 that happened at 2:40 this afternoon. Pretty much the same place, right on that red line. Then coming up, here's one off the coast of, well, near Panama, it looks like. 5.4 right there on that red line that happened at 2:18 this morning, and it was 2 219 kilometers south of Punta de Rica, Panama. It was in the ocean. It probably didn't cause any damage. I don't see any tsunami warnings on that. So you could probably feel it though. Here's one right off the coast of Costa Rica. Now, if people don't know about Costa Rica, they have 4 active volcanoes there. It's totally, and I researched Costa Rica. I was thinking about moving down there years ago, and I decided not to. But they have 4 active volcanoes, and so I'm not surprised to see an earthquake here. In fact, I'm surprised to not see more earthquakes down here. There was a 4.9 near Ciudad Cortez, Costa Rica, that happened at 5:09 this morning, 13 kilometers deep. Then, coming on up, here's one that happened on land in El Salvador. It was a 5.2, 4 kilometers south-southwest of Chinameca, El Salvador. It happened last night at 8:40 p.m., 180 kilometers deep. So, I don't know if there was any damage from that. I haven't seen reports on it. So it looks, so here's the roads, road up here and a road down here. This is San Miguel over to the east. Here's Santiago de Maria over to the west. Wakuapa up to the north. Usulután to the south. San Rafael Oriente to the south, and El Transito to the south. So there it is. That was a big one for on land especially. So I hope everyone's safe down there. Then there was one off the coast of southern Mexico in the Gulf of Tehuantepec, a 4.3 near San Francisco del Mar, Mexico, that happened at 9:20 this morning, 28 kilometers deep. So I think that's all of the international ones. Now let's go over here to the Dominican Republic. And it has been very active. Remember we saw this cluster here? And I was worried that something big might shake loose here. Remember, this is the 2.5 magnitude and higher. And it's showing 17 here on the map. So it looks like none of these were on land. These are all in the ocean, but this big cluster to the northeast of the main island, Dominican Republic. Here's a 3.4 at British Virgin Islands. Trying to see the largest. Here's 3.3, 3.3. So, and then the rest were under that, 3.1 and under. Now let's see how many are there with all magnitudes. 23. So we had 17, so 6 more that were under 2.5 magnitude. So 23 total. So they're not huge yet, but it's enough to show activity, and there's that red line for that Caribbean plate that runs right here. Now let's go over to Hawaii and see what's happening. We've got 12 here of all magnitudes. You zoom in a little bit more so you can really see where these are coming in. I'll just call them off: 1.3, 1.7, 1.6, 0.7, 2.7, 1.4, 1.7, 1.8, 1.8, 1.8, 1.9, and 2.6. So if we zoom in a little bit more, we can see where these were happening. So here's Mauna Loa. So these were happening in the Mauna Loa area, these larger ones. That 2.7, and then these are in the Kilauea crater. You've got 4 there. So it's still active. They're not huge yet, but it's still showing movement, and we got to keep an eye on it. Now let's go up to the Alaska region. We're going to start with, let's start with 2.5 magnitude and higher. And we've got 11 on the map, 2.5 magnitude and higher. We've got one down here of 2.5 near Adak. This was the Aleutian Island, in the Aleutian Islands. Let's look up here. There's a 2.7 near Kobuk. Then here's this one in the Gulf of Alaska, 4.3 near Kodiak. That happened at 5:03 this morning. That's one of the larger ones. Looks like this one just came in at 2.8 near Chirikov Island. 2.5 near Larsen Bay. 2.9 near Homer. 2.6 near Fritz Creek. 2.6 near Willow. And a 3.0 near Big Lake. 3.6 near Willow. So the 3.6 is the largest one we're seeing up here in Alaska, and that's in the Anchorage area. And here's another one that was hidden at 2.9. So that 3.6 is the biggest one, in addition to this 4.3 at Kodiak. So let's look at all magnitudes here in Alaska. Oh, okay, so this was a smaller one, 2.4 near Koktovik. So we're seeing 85 here today. 85 for all magnitudes. So they're just peppered through the middle of the state, coming down and along this Aleutian Island chain. And then clustered up in this Anchorage area. There's 70. When I zoomed in right here, we're seeing 70. But they're small. They're under 2. Most of them are under 2. We already saw the ones that were over 2.5. So now let's go to the United States. And first one we're going to look at is right down here in Oklahoma. 2.7 near Helena, Oklahoma. Came in at 2:25 this afternoon, 7 kilometers deep. 2.6 near Van Horn, Texas. Down here. Not too far. Well, it's in between Odessa and El Paso. It's closer to El Paso. So that came in last night, or yesterday. Oh, today at 2:17 p.m. 5 kilometers deep. You know, those could be from fracking or drilling, but it doesn't matter what they're from. You know, an earthquake is an earthquake in my book. It's showing movement. Okay, up in the northwest area, I'll just call them off. A 1.4 near Bonnie Lake. 1.6 near Morton. 1.8 near Mazama, up here on the border. And 1.6 near Morton. No quarry blasts up here today, as far as I can see. Now let's go over to Yellowstone. In this area, I'll call them off. We're showing 6 here today. 0.6 near Smithfield, Utah. That's down here just across the border. 0.6 near West Yellowstone, Montana. Here's a 0 magnitude. So that was a microquake. Same place near West Yellowstone, Montana. 1.5 near North Logan, Utah, down here. Minus 0.8 near Polson, Montana. And 1.7 near Virginia City, Montana. No blast. Maybe they're taking Friday off. We saw this one. Yeah, Polson. Maybe they're all taking Thursday. Today's Thursday. Why did I say Friday? My days run together. Let's look up here. These are concerning because they're on this San Andreas fault line. We've got 3 right here. 2.1 near Petrolia. 2.0 near Rio Dell. And 2.5 near Hydesville. So there's those. Then we've got a 2.3 near Willits. Then looking at the geysers, going uptick, we've got 16 here on the map today. Most of them are under 1, but although here's a 2.1 near Cobb and a 2.4, and then the rest are in the 1s and under range. Then coming on down, here's a 2.1 near Angwin, California. Here's a 1.6 near Crockett. Now this is that Hayward Fault that we saw. It's runs to the east of that, remember? So if we look at, where was that article? See if we can find that article again. Remember that line? It runs right through this northern bay area and to the east, right down there. So if we look at that to remember, so this one is right on that Hayward Fault. It'd be running down there. Now also we can turn on the US faults and see. They kind of mix in with the roads to me, but it's showing there's a fault running right through here and through here. There are lots of different faults running through all these areas. I don't normally leave those turned on because they mix in with the roads to me. I mean, but we can look at that if we need to. So that was a 1.6 that came in at 6:53 last night, 8 kilometers deep. And coming on down this San Andreas fault, we've got a 1.5 near Aromas, a 1.5 near San Juan Bautista, and 1.5 near Hollister, all in the same area. Here's another one right on that line, a 1.3 near Parkfield. Here's one to the west, a 1.4 near Atascadero, and then so we covered those. Now let's come on down to Southern California. Let's look at this cluster. This doesn't look good. We've got 4 down here at Johannesburg. Here's a 3.2. This came in last night at 7:13 p.m. 2 kilometers deep. A 1.0 that came in last night at 7:31. A 0.9, same place, that came in last night at 8:11, and then a 2.2 that came in at 10:43 last night. So these were all last night, starting at 7:13 until 10:43. So about 3.5 hours, all those came in. This is in Fremont Valley, says, and Red Rock Canyon is to the northwest of it. So there's that. So let's go ahead and cover Southern California while we're here, and Mexico right across the border. Let's look at this one first. There is a 2.0 near Alberto Oviedo Mota, Baja California, Mexico. Came in at 2:48 this morning. Then let's open this up a little. In Southern California, we're seeing 59 on the map here today. None down here at Salton Sea. So when we zoom in, here's our cluster at Kauai, and then they're just dotted around. We have a whole bunch just dotted around. There's 43 right here in this area. So these are small. So it looks like most of them in the area are small today. Here's this 1.2 near Thousand Palms. Let's see. Here's a 1.8 near Granada Hills. So 59, they look small. We already covered the ones that were 2.5 magnitude and higher, and we didn't see any right down here like that. So it's just more movement. Now let's come on up. We covered those. Let's look at these down here. These are small, but it's in Rose Valley of 1.5 near Little Lake. And the rest are at Costa Junction at 0.4. Here's a 0.7 at Little Lake, 0.3 Costa Junction, 0.5 Little Lake, and 1.5 Little Lake. So, got activity down there. Then, coming up here in the Long Valley area, in the Mammoth Lakes area, we have 21. So we're seeing a cluster here at Long Valley. So we've got, this is an uptick. Now let's just see the magnitude of these. These are small. Like here's a 0, a 0.8, 0.2, a minus 0.2. So a lot of these are microquakes, and then they go up into the ones, like here's the 1.6, and it looks like the largest one is the 2.1 at Tom's Place. So they clustered right here to the northwest of Lake Crowley. Look at that. Whitmore Tubbs Road. We've seen them there before. There's 12 right there. And see, a bunch of them, these 4 are red. They are just now coming in. Or came in the last hour or so. Now, let's look at Mono Lake. We've got 4 in this area, including this little one at Hawthorne. 1.0, 1.4, 0.8, and 0.9. Now, let's see if there's anything else in California. Then we'll do Nevada. Here's one, minus 0.1 near Truckee. Here's a 1.0 near Portola. Here's a 0.1 near Portola. Here's a 1.8 near Taylorsville. And then we saw this one, I think. Yeah, we got Willits. Oh, we missed this one in Oregon. Here's an explosion. A 1.7 magnitude explosion near Roseburg, Oregon. It came in at 4:17 this afternoon. Minus 0.5 kilometers depth. Well, we know what that means. They're blowing stuff up. Here's another explosion. A 1.4 explosion near Connell, Washington. This came in at 4:03 this afternoon. A minus 0.3 kilometers depth. So see, these are being posted after I started the report. That's what happens. Like, they happen, and then an hour or two later they'll put them on, if you're lucky. Now, in the Reno area, here's a -0.1 near Cold Springs, and nothing at Pyramid Lake. Let's look at Carson City. 2, we've got a 2.3 down here on Prison Hill, it looks like, and a 0.5. Same place. See, Prison Hill. They have a prison down there. That's why it's called Prison Hill. Then, moving on down, we've got these down in Hawthorne. We always see these down here. 1.2 near Gabbs. 1.0 near Hawthorne. These just cluster around for whatever reason. I mean, it's seismically active. 1.6 near Tonopah. Plus, once you get down into the southern Nevada area, you've got the Nevada test site. A lot of underground stuff going on. 1.0 near Alamo, and so on and so forth. So I'm not seeing any more explosions here. Let's see if we got all of Nevada. Looks like. So we did see a couple of explosions, one in Oregon and one in Washington. Here's one right next to Walker Lake, a 1.0. Now let's zoom out and see if anything big happened while we were doing our report. Oops, too far. No, I think we've got them. We got this up in Alaska, this 2.8 near Chiricahua Island. Here's a new one. It just came in, a 2.7 near Puerto Rico, down here in that Dominican Republic area. I think I got that anyway. So it looks like I've gotten everything. So I'll go ahead and sign off for today. I love all of you guys very much. We went a little longer than I anticipated, but we covered a lot. We covered research, we covered comments, we covered articles, and we covered, what was it? Frost quakes. Crazy. So I do believe that time is short, and I recommend everyone get their spiritual houses in order. My name is Margo, and I love you all. And until next time, God bless everyone, and be safe, and go in peace. And I'll talk to you real soon. Good night.